Hey, how you doing? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensie Owl Bob. Here I'm out in my buddy's porch. He was just asleep in that chair. He's the man who can go to sleep instantaneously. It takes me a while, but I get there. So how you doing? Let's see. What's going on? Anyone there want to say hello? 47 seconds into the show. Anyway, always remember to hit like the show. Hit that button. Subscribe. Let's get some folks here, right? Anyway, I got my laptop fixed, and so I was writing last night. I was going to went out to lunch with a friend. I went to a couple of doctor's appointments. I'm getting my body. I'm having another operation. I'm gonna have my hips replaced, so I'll look like Marilyn Monroe. Anyway, so I went into Johnson City, the big city, and went around and got all my ducks in a row, eggs in a basket, all the rest, whatever trite conversation you want to say. But and I had to use my car. My car is like, it's the Jesus mobile, meaning, unless Jesus wants me to go someplace, that thing ain't moving. So and there's a great book called The Course in Miracles. You guys should get a hold of, right? And there's another thing. There's the Book of Runes, The Healing Runes by Bloom, right? Those two books. If you got those two books, you could start sussing out who and what you are, and it'd be illuminating at the very least. So what do you think you guys are? What do you think's going on? What is life about? For me right now, it's to sit on this deck and do that. That's my friend who can sleep anytime, anywhere. There she is. And there's 60 of those. We got 60 cats. It's pretty amazing. Anyway. So there's one of you there. Or is that? No, 7. Look, 7 of you. So anyway, meaning to life, kids. What do you think it is? My take on it, and don't believe a word I say, this is just for your entertainment's sake. All the stuff that goes on in the world, the wars, the rumors of wars, the plagues, the rumors of plagues, the Dark Ages, the Enlightenment, all of that, it's just a passing fancy. The real deal is your connection. You are the Ark of the Covenant. The covenant is a relationship with you and love's co-creation. That's what that's about, right? And do any of you feel that ever? Now, we live in this materialist illusion, and we kind of, here's our buddy. Look at this guy. Cooper, here you are. Cooper's got a bum leg. He's had the bum leg since he was a puppy. And so he doesn't really, he's got a thalidomide kind of bum leg. And it doesn't bother him at all. He doesn't go, oh, my life, it sucks. Oh, it's so terrible, blah, blah, blah. So he's just happy to be here. Come here, buddy. Come here. Come on. Ooh, whoop, whoop, whoop. Like, he doesn't even care if I scratch his ears. Or there go, hey, get that ear around. He doesn't care that one ear is going one way and the other ear is going the other way. And he's just happy to be here. Yeah. Yes, you are the puppy. Anyway, let's turn this around. so meaning to life, right? So I remember, when I was a little kid, I was surrounded by elders. Away, Roy? Dog puppy. I have your dog puppy. Oh, okay. Got one of those. And it's not mine. It's my buddy's dog. I'm just hanging out at my bud's patio. So, okay, Roy. Okay, Roy. What do you think? I love your dog puppy. Yeah. Coop's the dude. But Molly, where are you, Molly? Come on out, Molly. Molly is another super dog. She's like older than dirt, and she's doesn't let anything bother her. Cooper, nothing bothers him. He thinks he's he's sitting down. He's taking a breather. But he's so funny because he is such the guard dog. Anyone comes in, and he's like on it. Oh, so cute he is. He's a cutie. And Molly, where's Molly? Molly, come here, girl. She's inside. We're out here. So the temperature here, it has been in the hundreds for the last few weeks, and now it's 72. We lost like the summertime, and now it's kind of coolish. And there's something really cute. Like I said, you want to see something cute? Look at this guy, this kitty. They have so many kitties, they don't really have names, right? And that's all this cat does. It's just, sleep right there. And they all kind of look the same. They all came from, so the cat knows what I'm talking about. And so he kind of opens his eyes. He doesn't move his head. He just kind of he opens his eyes, looks over here. Anyway, so this is the deep, I'm about 15 miles from here. And it's that away, 15 miles, behind you, that away. And you go about 4 miles down that road. And, here she is. She came out the other way. There's Molly. Molly. So she wants to get in. She can get in. Molly, go on in. Go on. Show them how to do it. Come on, Molly. You can do it. So that's the gang. The kitty and Molly and Cooper. Let's see. Oh, I have a failed foster beagle. Great. See, she's going to get in. She knows how to do it, but she actually she thinks I have a cookie for her, but no, the best I can do is this. Yes. She likes this. A great barker. Yep, a guard dog. Loves cars too, or cats. Yeah. So these guys, everybody gets along. And they actually like the 60 cats more than other people's dogs, because other people's dogs aren't like holler dogs. These guys are, born here, grew up here. So she's got to get it. See how she did it. Cooper, you missed it. Did you see how she did it? Coop, where'd you go? Oh, he's over here. Anyway. So, I don't worry about anything, right? I sold everything, gave everything I had to the poor, and and so, like I said, I grew up in Harlem, up there in the New York City, then Long Island, way out in Long Island, eastern Long Island, then the seminary in Connecticut, and then the prison for super rich kids, I went to the school called the Winchendon School for Boys. Now it's just the Winchendon School because they got girls there too. And it would have been nice to, and Canterbury too has girls there too. I was telling a friend a story back in, when was that? The Vermont gathering. We finally it took them all that time to start the lawnmower. I guess it was 92 or 3. Yeah. And because 91 I was in Ithaca, New York at Cornell, and we did a gathering near Trumansburg on the Iroquois Nation's land, because New York State had no national forests. So the Indians said, I was buds with Grandpa David and his son David, Two Feathers, and so they said, you can do it here. And it was great. I mean, it's a beautiful spot. And the people in Trumansburg, the county commissioner, the chief of police, the mayor, all those people explained to exactly what we were going to do. And the guy, the county commissioner, his brother owned a gas station out near there. And I said, you're going to make $2 million because there are going to be 20,000 people who are going to need batteries and everything. I'll give you a list of stuff together. You'll be the guy who can, bring us the food. And, and the Indians and the state DOT, they gave me a grader and front end loader. And, I built a road, to get into this spot. That was really beautiful. And the county wanted the road built, and the Indians wanted the road built. And so I did it with all these kids from, Ithaca College and Cornell. I had about 20 kids. And we go out there every weekend, and I showed them how to drive the tractors and bulldozers, and they were like, wow. And they were all kind of, richy kids. They never did anything like that, right? So half those kids were in the sustainability and some were in the architect department. So we were building a city for 20,000 people, water and septic and you name it, parking, the road, all the above. And it was a great, the big meadow of 200 acres was basically, they had cows there. And then when they didn't have cows there, they grew grass to mow, to put into bales, to sell, that kind of stuff, the farm thing, right? And so that big thing was laying fallow that year, and all these medicinal herbs came up. I kind of moved on site February, March. I moved there in March, right? And this is upstate New York where it gets pretty cold. And they have the lake effect snow. So it was but I made this my healing thing. And I had this girlfriend who was, let's see, in the 90s, so 60, 70, 80, 90. So I was in my 40s when I was doing that gathering, when I was doing the serious rainbow stuff. And so I put this thing together, and then I called up my rainbow buddies and said, hey, we're going to have a rainbow gathering. And I know that the Grateful Dead are going to play in Boston, and then they're going to come straight down 91 and go to, wherever they were going to go south. And your gathering is, the whole rainbow crew is going to be going up and down. And whether you have see how nice it was, quiet. Holler people just love to mow their lawn. it's like mind-boggling. Carmen loves driving that lawnmower. She really, it's like she's the captain of the ship. So, look at this place. I'll show you. She just keeps this place amazingly attractive. She grows all this stuff and she moves it around. And I told her that she should, go to Hollywood and and work on set design, because she really does a great job of this. The place looks, but my place is, too bad I don't have internet out there, then I could show it to you live. But it's, I kind of did a thing to it like 20 years ago, and then I planted all these plants that were like indigenous. They were medicinal herbs, and they flower. And so all like from May on, it flowers, it does something else, it seeds, it does, and I don't do anything. But well, John and I definitely have a kismet kind of abilities, but my basic take, if I go and stay with him, he'll throw me out and put me at jeopardy and blah blah blah. And I won't really be doing anything good for him, except enable his, whatever he does, right? And it hurts my soul to watch John torment himself, right? I mean, I was trained to heal people, and he doesn't want to heal. And see, healing can only come when you want to be healed. So I spent a good 17 months working it out, and 7 of those months, if not 8, I was someplace else because he threw me out. I mean, and that was why I stayed there as long as I did, because he'd throw me out, and then God would put an umbrella over me and put me into an exciting, interesting event, right? And it'd be a lot more interesting than listening to John go on and tell how A-lister movie star he is. And anyway. The drone of the machine. I mean, I cut my lawn. One of my friends gave me a push mower, and that's my, what do you call it? That's my stress test. My lawn is kind of a football field's length long, and it's about 40 foot wide. So I go up and down and up and down and up and down and up about 5-10 times. And it looks great, right? And it's built, it's got great drainage, it's got great water, it's got great nutrition. I don't have to do anything to it. I don't even have to cut it. I mean, it doesn't grow like this lawn grows, right? And Carmen does this at least once a week. I do it like maybe once a month. When the big, tall, grassy things would, like buttercups, and they're like a foot tall, and they're like, and I let them stay that way until the buttercup part kind of falls off, and then it's just the stringy thing sticking out of the ground, and I then mow the lawn, give it a haircut. But anyway, John is, John's just going to be John, and it's sad that you can be, I'm eccentric, I would say that, but I'm very sensitive to all the people I'm around. I'm an empath, John has a lot of that in him, but he's got a reflector that basically the dynamic is him and just him, right? So it's like boring, And he does things like, I'll do a show, and I did a show. I do a lot of shows because we had great internet there. one of our neighbors put, microwave thing on his little thing and beamed the internet up to the school. And we had better internet than, like the federal government has. I mean, we just had a gigantic, as I say, a big pipe. And so because this guy's business, he did the telecommunications for banks, right? So they had to be secure and all the rest. So he had the top notch. So how we got up on the mountain was I bumped into him, and John was, he was out of town, doing what, trying to get to see his kids and, getting involved in, whatever he got involved in. And I basically met this guy, and he goes, "Do you have a place to stay?" And I took him to school, so you can stay here. He goes, "Wow, I got to get out of where I'm at because they're gonna, throw me out." And he had a business, and he had all this stuff, and he had been in his house for like, 5-6 years, and then the guy sold it to somebody else, and then that guy said, "I'm going to tear the house down and build something else, so you got to go. You can't just rent it, you got to go." And so he had no place to go, and then I brought him up to school, and he said, "Wow, yes, this is my place." Yeah, ooh, good. And John had bought it, and like I said, he had been there 4 or 5 months. He bought it in 15, like spring of 15, and we did stuff to the house, and like he always goes, "Oh, I've been working 60 hours a day." No, he would hire he'd hire me, he'd hire other people, and that's, to him, that was working. Anyway, so he wanted to go see his kids, and he got himself a car, and he drove like to Texas, and he didn't quite make it. And that's a whole nother story that maybe I'll tell someday. But anyway, so he was gone for a week or two, and I was still really sick, and I hadn't nailed down my medical thing. I was in the process of doing that. And I needed a little money to get, I didn't get it as well as I got it now. I got it really socked in. I had to first go get, I was really totally screwed. And so I had to, and I wasn't 65 yet, so I had to get on disability. And that's like a week-long root canal, so I did that. And it still took a while to get all my ducks in a row so I could get taken care of. And so I was doing that. And I was going to have a procedure and this, and I needed to have, at least $500 to pay the copay, or they weren't going to do it, right? So I said, okay. So I said, he goes, what do you need for me to move in? I said, "You got $600?" No, I said, "You got $600? I'll give you $1,200. And so he does, right? Benjamin's. And I put that in my pocket. And because John still owed me like 40 grand on school, he paid X amount up front, and I said, instead of going get a loan, I'll hold the paper, because if he screwed up or whatever, I would then own the school again, right? So this guy giving me $1,200 to stay there, it wasn't like, John still owed me like 40 grand. So anyway, and John was never, he's supposed to pay me $800 every month. And he would give it to me because it's costing me money to stay here. It's like stuff like that. And John was just, if you go and watch those shows with me and John, the magic of it was we were like Laurel and Hardy of the 21st century. And I kept telling John, let's kind of, because people seem to like us together, every time we get popular and people would tell John to shut up so they could listen to me tell a story, he would throw me out, and he'd throw me out like in the middle of a snowstorm at 3 a.m. He would come down. He had no sensibility of like space. He would come down and he'd always have a hammer in his hand. He'd like smash on the door and he'd come in. But John, it's 3 in the morning, I'm asleep. And they said, oh, look at me. He'd say, I got to talk to you. And he'd go on and on about, how the teacher made fun of him in 5th grade. I had a nun murder me in the 1st grade, Talk about being traumatized. That's why I talk funny. She crushed my esophagus. That's why this eye is like looking that way. But she broke the orbit in my eye. And that's why this ear doesn't really hear too well. I have to always situate myself so this ear can hear people talk. But this ear, that noise doesn't bother this ear. But I can hear the birds singing across the street with this ear better than a loud lawnmower. So that's how I looked at being murdered by a nun. That it was a good thing. It was, because it got me out of that stupid school. All my brothers and sisters went to it for 8 years. Me, I didn't even last one before the nun murdered me. And then I went to a seminary with the Marinos, who were really the bomb. They were the best. They were all like Jesus. It was really quite amazing and brilliant. They were all, PhDs and doctors and whatever they were doing. That's how I kind of got the way, they taught me Latin and Greek when I was, how old are you when you're in 1st grade? 7, 8 years old, something like that. And I could read, I just couldn't read out loud. I could read the book and tell you what it was about, but I couldn't read it out loud. And so when I was in, the Catholic school, where they make you stand up and read out loud, and if you get it wrong, they hit you with a ruler. So anyway, so John, he went to a private public school. Virginia's a very strange place. They when Brown came down, where basically had to integrate public schools. First they tried to have fair but equal, but separate, and that didn't quite work out. So as they were slowly, state by state, integrating the schools, Virginia said, screw it. Nah, we're not going to have public schools. The state of Virginia is closing down all public schools. And then they sold all those public schools for a dime to all of the Christian Ku Klux Klan white people, who then had their own private little schools, like North Cross and tons of other little, that had been a public school, but now it's a private school. Right? Anyway, and we're kind of, that's where we're heading back to, make America great again. And people don't realize that this is just one big soap opera, Earth, since we left, and the first episode of this soap opera is when the kids break out of a fenced-in garden with that burning sword of truth and light, right? When the angels gave Adam and Eve that sword. That's how they broke out of the garden. Because they didn't want to stay there. They wanted to get out, see what's on the other side of that fence. Right? Especially once they realized what was, part of the, good and evil thing going on. Rainbow. I wish I had my glasses. Rainbow Buddies. Sounds pretty cool. It is, but I was so, Rainbow Gathering grew out of Woodstock. Woodstock happened, and that's even a longer story, and I was part of that. And I helped set it up, but then I went back to New York to get some equipment, and that's when the New York Thruway was closed, because we moved the show from Woodstock, the town of Woodstock. Oh, this is terrible, but... And so we went to Yasgur's farm, which is in the other county, and his farm went all the way down to the New York State Thruway. And once people realized all they had to do was, drive on the New York Thruway, park, and then walk up the hill, and there was Woodstock, right? And instead of going all the way around, coming through the gate, there was no gate. There she is, the movie star. Someone call? This girl. Watch yourself now, baby. She's on the, hun bun. She's mowing the lawn. She's not coming back. Louise, come on. Just hang up.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Oh, okay.
But she wants to
That's Elle. She's the sweetest, she's 90-something years old, and you can't stop her from doing anything. So I don't. It's like, okay. And a lot of people around here, they're getting older. I'm getting older. I'm pushing 80, and I was having lunch with them, and her kids were here, or this is their house. And anyway, so we were talking, and I said, well, you guys are just whippersnappers. And then I realized, well, no, they're really just 4 or 5 years younger than mine, because we were talking about healthcare and, car. She was saying, how why don't you worry about paying your doctor bills? I said, no, I got Medicare, and I got this, and I got that. I got all this stuff because I'm old and decrepit, and I've worked myself into the system, and I'm getting taken care of before the system doesn't exist. Watch your step, honey bun. Whoa, baby.
I'm fine.
You okay?
Somebody called, and I thought they said dealer, but they hung up right away.
Well, don't worry about it. Why don't you sit here and join me? Cooper, get out of the way.
I'm folding clothes.
Okay. You're folding clothes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
But she's worried about that window coming.
Oh, those guys.
We had one call, and then there was another one.
Oh, they'll show up. I mean, they want to make their money. They'll show up.
Yeah, but they're messing up the schedule.
Yeah, well, they're messing up the schedule, and that's part of life. The schedule gets messed up. Okay, sweetie. Love you. In the gatherings back in the 70s, we'd go off, and we would walk in. We didn't have cars. We'd walk in. We'd take a bus someplace, and we'd walk in. We'd walk in so deep that the police would never go in there, because cops don't show up unless they can drive their car there, right? And we were so far in the woods that, where I live, no one comes, they'll never find me. I mean, just the chuckleheads who get lost and then come by me, and then I play with their minds. But, and a few of the cockroaches, but they've left, and they're not coming back till the roads get fixed. And so, it's, so rainbow is a great idea, but it has totally de-evolved. Do you know Devo? Do. Crack that whip. Do. Devo, de-evolve, right? And so that's what the rainbow, and it's so white. Next time I do this, I'm going to get some of the picture of the rainbow gatherings, and it's just like 20,000 white bourgeois people, right? Now some are have businesses and have the best of everything, and then others are, came from, middle-class family and then got into heroin, and then they live on the street, but they're all coming from the same place. Just, you can see the gradating scale, right? And that's humans, the gradating scale, right? Hi there, Sensie Owl Bob. Hello, all you cadre. That's what you are. You're the cadre, right? And I'm glad to see you here. My phone, I'm not using my laptop because my digital world is not, I don't know how to run it or organize it, or, as Elle would say, they're messing up the schedule. I don't know anything about that. And so that's what I do. The cat wants to get in. the cats can't get in because they seemingly have more fleas than the dogs. And but that's like the land they can't get into. I mean, they can go in through the dog door into the what do you call it, the mud room. Anyway, but see that my little story here. We've been doing this show now 38 minutes and 38 seconds, and this is like Donald Trump has the weave. He just kind of. But that is something that audiences love because they either fall asleep or kind of get into it, and I basically, I used to have a mystery school, a mystic mystery school. I had it at the school where John is. I had it up there, where I have the deep green. I had it there. At Ithaca, there was a beautiful near Trumansburg, where all the Finger Lakes are, right near Seneca Lake. There's one of the tallest waterfalls on the East Coast. It's little, but it's like 800 feet falling water, right? And so the whole area, even in the winter, that water falls and it's a mist and it's like crystalline. It's like beautiful. So I had my mystery school there, and it was a great path, and it was a mystery path that you basically drove on this Forest Service road, and it was a pretty, it wasn't paved, but it was well maintained, and it had, culverts and, where streams were, and it was quite nice. And they had, the AT kind of went through it, and they had, or whatever trails that were there, and they were marked, and so it was, but you still had to know where you were to get to wherever you wanted to go. So I had that school up there, and someone took me to this waterfall, and like I said, unless you knew it was there, you never. And it's the tallest, one of the taller than Niagara Falls, right? Not gigantic, but way up there, right? And it always made clouds. That was the other interesting thing. So anyway, and it was kind of where the water came crashing down was this little valley, and at the whole bottom part of the valley was like a mystery world. I mean, it had all different kinds of plants, and they were always there'd be flowering plants in the middle of winter. It was like truly an interesting spot. And so that was where I had my mystery school there. And then we did the Rainbow Gathering, and that was, again, when, from March until June, when seed cans started. It was the only people who showed up were people from Trumansburg and the Finger Lake areas, those little towns, and Ithaca College and Cornell. So there was a nice group of people, like 100 people, who were doing this, putting together. They had never gone to a rainbow gathering. Well, 3 people of that group went to a rainbow gathering, and that's how it kind of got there, because some guy said, "Hey, let's go see so-and-so. They went to a rainbow gathering, and they want to do one here, and you're Mr. Rainbow, so come on." So I said, okay. So we went there, and when we got there, they were like screaming at each other, because when they went to that rainbow gathering that summer, before this, because this was like Thanksgiving, and they had told the council that they should come to Ithaca and have a gathering there. And so they semi-invited them, but they didn't know how it worked. So, they thought that everyone was going to show up. And in the end, they did, right? Because the place that the council picked was a shithole. And a few of the high hippie holies came and stayed with me and said, "This is amazing. This is gorgeous." And that was still April, May, it still was up there, almost winter. And so, and because it was a pond, there was a nice lake, a big pond and water and really great camping and lots of firewood and trails, and we were making it beautiful. It was like, woo. And so that's why it happened, because the rumor, or the mo, went out to everyone. No, let's go to this place. It's really beautiful. And they took some pictures and they put it up on the internet, and the rest is history. And that's how I got. Do you smoke? Well, the thing about smoking, I never was, I went to Duke, where they had cigarette machines that were free. You kind of went to the machine, you pulled a little thing, the pack came out and had 5 cigarettes. And they did it to get you hooked, because nicotine is the most addictive substance there is. So that and L-dopamine, which is methadone, right? Methadone is a Nazi drug. It's a drug they designed that once it gets in your system, you're for the rest of your freaking life, you're addicted to it, right? And if you can't get that, you'll do heroin or crank or meth or whatever. And that's why there's such a bad drug thing, because all these guys came back from Vietnam and they gave them methadone, L-dopamine, right? Anyway, so back in the day, sure, I'd smoke a bone or two. I mean, I worked in rock and roll. I worked in theater. Everyone's stoned or drunk or whatever. But I never did a lot. I like being me. I like being conscious, intent I am. But sometimes you're with a bunch of people and you're sitting around a fire and you're all kind of, telling jokes and being stupid. Well, that's okay. Then you can do that. But edibles are more the thing, because since that nun crushed my esophagus, smoke into my lungs is not a good thing. So, basically, that's. And this place, their house, is, been here forever. This place here. I'll give you another shot of this joint. This place is over 100 years old. Yeah, it's got new siding on it, new roof, and new windows and stuff, but it's a really old house. And so it used to be a big farm. And so the road that's now the road used to be the farm road, for the farm, right? But, as chunks got sold off over the years and people bought it and built a house up there, or just bought big chunks of land for not that much money. But you could, when I moved this place 25 years ago, you could buy 50, 60, 100, 200 acres for less than $5,000. There was, the guys who owned the property on the lake sold it ridiculously cheap because they didn't like paying the taxes on it and the TVA money you had to pay for it. So you could buy that almost for nothing. And now it's selling for millions of dollars an inch. And they're going to build 8 600-room casinos on our lake. So anyway, this road here now, when I met these guys 4 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 people lived on this road, because it goes that way about 5 miles, and it kind of forks, and one goes down along the lake, and the other one kind of kicks out and goes to the county road. And so now that property above them has been sliced up into 60 lots. This one guy, who taught at ETSU, bought, like back in the day, like 10 years before I showed up, he bought 1,000 acres, I think, on this whole side. He sliced it up into 50 lots of like 50 acres apiece. And then those people sliced it up into 1 acre lots. So there's now close to 300 lots that they're building houses on. And the only way to get there is on this little road that goes right through their house, basically. So it's bizarre because, I knew this road before I really was hanging with these guys, and 5 years ago. And I never came up here because I saw it was really nice and didn't want to, get in the way. And then, and see this whole place, lots of times, like the guy who bought all that property, his whole idea was to develop it. But then he got too old and then he sold parts of it off. And I knew that at some point, this top, because there's only so much property around, like Asheville. It was when I was there for 10 years. I could have bought any house there for 10 grand. And then today I could sell it for like $5 million, right? And it's like living on, when I lived there, there were 60,000 people in Buncombe County. Now there's 500,000. The road 25 that went to the airport out of Buncombe, out of, what's it? The big house in Asheville. Starts with a B. I mean, that's how I got to Biltmore House, right? The Astors built it. It was their version of Versailles, and I was sent up there to document every screw, because I'm going to redo it and bring it back to what it was, because it was in terrible disrepair. Let's see, what are you saying here? Sounds like you've got a hell of a plot out there. I believe you're in Colorado, right? No, I'm right in the strangest part, this little Ouija board of a triangle of property of the, I guess it's the most northeastern corner of Tennessee, and around me, within 70 miles in any direction, like if I go due south, 6 miles, North Carolina. If I go due east, 12 miles, Virginia. I go northeast to West Virginia. That's about 40 miles. Kentucky is right next to West Virginia, and that's maybe 70 miles. So, and two, I'm in the accordion Sawtooth Mountain Range between the Blue Ridge Mountains and the whatchamacallits, Appalachians, right? And you go more towards where my deep green is, it's more Blue Ridge Mountains. This right here is on the tippy toes of the Appalachians. And it's a sawtooth, these mountains are up and down, 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 up and down. And the lake, swims between all the mountains, because they built the dam and just filled everything up like a bathtub. So that's why I picked this place. It had unbelievable water that was not going to go away. And water is going to be a real issue on this planet, relatively. Not so much on the planet, but where people are, right? And so people are going to be moving around a lot. And that's going to cause a lot of friction with lots of people. I mean, that's what's happening in Africa, and that's what's happening in North Africa, the Mideast. That's what's happening in Europe. These are all about resources, and if we shared everything would be fine. But people want to own it, control your life because you need that water. You'll do this because I can make you do this. And Donnie Chump and Vlad, the two Vlads, and Bibi, they are the epitome of this fear-based control stupidity, right? And I love it because they are doing what most empires do. It takes 1,000 years to build an empire and about 300 to destroy it. And as what's his name said in The Heart of Darkness, everything is fine until it's not. And then you're in the heart of darkness and it expands out. So that's kind of what the end of an empire is. And so, and the problem with that, like right now, America had been the top dog since the end of World War II. But, by 1950, only 5 years later, they had to do so much stuff to keep that position that they were already on decline. And now it's like, Wile E. Coyote, with the firecracker tied to his back, he's like up in space, and then, and woo, now it's coming down. And I love Donald Trump because he is taking America down. Just in the last 6 months, he has done more damage than what has happened, since Jack. I mean, all of what we're going through, basically started with the assassination of Jack and the assassination of Bobby and assassination of Martin and assassination of Malcolm X, assassination of hundreds of other great human beings that if they were kept alive, we'd be really having a wild, crazy, good time. So that's where we're at, and it's just it's just 6 months. Just look what's happened now. The dynamic of it, you can pretend that it's not so bad, but the realities are the big things. Is that America has lost whatever resonance of control it had. Right? China's Donnie tried to be the big man, the kahuna, and he put 140% thing on China, and China said, fine, good, thank you very much. And Donnie, what do you mean, thank you very much? Well, aren't you going to bend at the knee and kiss my ring? No. You go have a good time. What you've done for us is that you've gotten us out of all of those long-term contracts for us buying food and this, and us selling you worthless crap for pennies. Now we're going to go into the expensive stuff, and we don't have to buy shit from you. So we and they turned off. The biggest people we sold oil and gas and coal to was China. And in less than 48 hours, they just, after Donnie put that thing on them, they didn't buy any more soybeans, corn, wheat, pork, beef, chicken, no more. Went to Brazil, went to India, went to other people, right? And oil, they went to Iran and to Russia. And that put the money behind BRICS. Now, BRICS is becoming a powerful international entity. This is the next Brecon Woods. Go do your homework. Read about what happened at Brecon Woods. Right? It was a hotel in New Hampshire, I think, where they made the New Order, right, in 1945. And basically because America was the only place that didn't get bombed. It still existed, I lived in England in the 60s, and London still had half of neighborhoods bombed out from the Germans. They didn't really fix London until the 90s. So anyway, and that's what I'm trying to tell you, that the things that are going on aren't that important. What's important is your spiritual connection. You are the covenant. You are the ark of the covenant. The covenant is your relationship with love's co-creation. That's what it's about. Not about all this other stuff. This is just a game show. Donald Trump is just the game show host. He's just reading a script. The Russian Vlad is reading a script. And the Ukraine, because you look at that war, it makes no sense. They're destroying Russia and Ukraine. Why? So some large mega corporation can buy it and turn it into the next Disneyland and take all their resources, for a penny on the dollar. And turn all those people who are left, Russia's demography was not, they had gone way past their replacement thing. They had more people over 60 before they started this war, and now they have, murdered 1 million of their own youngest people who were fighting that war, who didn't want to go but got sent to die, to be thrown into the meat grinder. 1 million. So that's 1 million households, 1 million mommies, 1 million grandmas, 1 million daddies and grandpas and kids and uncles. And that's just how revolutions get started. So, don't worry about anything. Yeah, and they're going to throw around some nukes. They'll take out, Paris or this or that. Look what they did to, Damascus, to Syria, That was of all those countries, that was the most beautiful, amazing, because that was this place where all these different cultures went. I mean, they had Buddhist monasteries there. It's all gone. And that's why they had that war there. There was no reason. They just decided to blow shit up and get rid of it, erase that history. So no one will, they did a really good job. And I went to that neck of the woods in the 70s, early mid 70s, when I lived in Sweden. I would just jump on a Swedish airplane, and Swedes could go anywhere. They were non-aligned, and so, and they would go and spend money, and everyone loved Swedes, and they were boring, and they would leave, right? Or they weren't boring, and they were wild and crazy, right? So I did that for a number of years, not all straight all the time, but that was one of my go-to places. I go to New York, do a gig, make a nice chunk of change, and jump on Freddie Lake, or go to London, see my friends in Paddington Station. I'd have a Euro pass. I'd go, take the ferry from Swansea to Gutenberg, and then, take the A1 to my friends who lived in, what was that place? Forest Sugar, right in the middle of Sweden, right? Two big highways. A1, I went, straight across, I guess that's east to west or west to east. The other one north to south. And that went from Gutenberg to the capital, right? And I would go to that airport, and the government of Sweden gave everyone a vacation, and not just time off and their salary, but they would pay for the vacation, the hotel room, the flight, everything. And half of those folks, because it's half the year, it's dark all the time, the other half it's sunny, never goes down, so they're kind of wigged out. So they get the thing, and then they couldn't get on the airplane. So all you had to do was go to that airport and look at the board and pick whatever place you wanted to go. You want to go to Paris? No problem. You want to go to Istanbul? No problem. You want to go to China? No problem. Africa? No problem. And you would just go over to this desk, and you would say, okay, and I would show my driver's license, my Swedish driver's license, that looked like a passport, and that showed that I had residency in Sweden. So I had accessibility to go on those airplanes. So the lady said, so where do you want to go? And I would pick a place, and she would, fill out this form. I fill it out. She'd stamp it about 20 different times and give me the airplane tickets and all the other tickets that, for all the tours and the hotel. And she'd give me a nice little packet, and she goes, leave gate 6 in about 2 hours or 20 minutes, or better get running, right? So, and I did that for about 3 years. Not all the time, but, that was my shtick. Go to New York, make some money, go to Europe, and live like whatever, I lived in Paris, I lived in London, lived in Ireland, like a Parisian, and not like a working class Parisian. I mean, every place I went, I'd get an apartment, not a hotel room. I'd live in a hostel, I'd find a nice neighborhood, I'd hang out at the latte bar and talk to people, and they said, oh, I need a roommate, or I have there's an apartment right next to me, it's only, 20 euros a month, and, that's like, $200, give or take. Anyway, so that's what I did for a good 5 years. And I did other stuff in the middle of it, because I would find myself, like when I was in Gutenberg, I stayed there almost a whole year because we started a thing, go look up the milk glass in the 70s. There was this big industrial dairy that just, ran afoul. And in Gutenberg, everyone was squatting. So there were a bunch of people in this place, and it was an amazing building. It had all kinds of great stuff, and they weren't doing anything really with it except just, fooling around. And I said, let's turn this into, eco-village. Eco-village, yeah, let's grow our own food. Let's do this. I said, well, we can go to garbage. And I said, yeah, we can do that, but we can grow our own food too. Anyway, long story short, within 4 months, so everyone there were offices, there were all kinds of, they all had their own little apartments, and the building was like one big glass thing. It was amazing, right? And so it had a big central open space factory, and we turned that into like a common space where we had, that's one of the places where Swedish electronica started, like ABBA and those kind of guys, and but the more electronic side of it. And that was always playing. People were always fooling around with synthesizers, and it was like a constant background. Like this show, the constant background is a sweetie on the lawnmower. And anyway, so I spent a good year making that thing happen, and that's what turned Gutenberg into the wild, crazy hipster town it is. Was the milk glass. Go see if you can dig that up on the internet. You might even see some pictures of a young Sensie Owl Bob there. But so I was like, let's do this. And there were a lot of people say, yeah, let's do it. So they came from there, and they were doing stuff there already, so they were into it. And then we got other people who we could motivate. And all I did was, when something needed to be done and no one could do it, I'd go do it. I remember one time, we were such a force, the government started to go, I don't know about this. And me and this really pretty girl went and talked to the mayor and somebody from the federal government of Sweden and said, listen, this fits right into Swedish tradition. And, I just, went on and on about Swedish tradition and creativity and the Swedish, can-do attitude, da-da-da-da-da. And they said, yeah. I said, and if you let us do this will make this city that is, the only thing it's known for is its prostitutes. It will bring back the creative edge that invented the printing press. That's Gutenberg is, the Gutenberg Bible. That's kind of where the printing press was invented. And they were they were like the Silicon Valley of the 7th century. And so I gave them that whole thing, and they bought it. And that's why, go look at what Gutenberg is now, right? It's a really interesting, innovative hub. And see if you can find that, the milk glass, right? So what's the milk glass? Milk, right? In Swedish is milk, right? Milk, glass is glass, meaning not a glass of milk, but the whole building was made out of glass. And the milk, we were at this place, I don't know what it is now, but at this part, it was in the industrial section of Gutenberg, which was kind of off to one side, and the water was just down over there, and the hills that kind of went up to the mountains was over there. So it was kind of a place where it really had fallen into disrepair. And so there weren't a lot of houses, street lights, it was kind of a dark, dank, nobody went there. That's why you could take over a 200,000 square foot building and no one would notice, right? And so why we called the milk glass is because when we first got there, before I kind of jiggered electricity into the building, when the moon wasn't out and the night was clear, you could see the stars, the Milky Way, through that glass roof. That was something. So anyway, that's a little story there. That's an hour and 3 minutes. You guys have been great here. Seems like you had Colorado, right? Nope. Tennessee, girl. But actually, I live in this weird little triangle because people here are, some are like North Carolinians, some are because they kind of flowed back and forth before we became an America. So the old families that are here, they're, some that are real West Virginia, and they all have different kind of accents. It's quite interesting. And there are lots of people here that, the cockroaches are moving in and taking over, people from California and Florida and New York and, Charlotte and etc. And, I'm an important person, I'm reality, it's all the numbers at the bottom of the page, blah, blah, blah. And, I remember this, why don't they speak English? I said, well, they are. It's actually Old English. So anyway, I'm gonna go because I'm gonna go to my little non-connected neck of the woods, because I have to drive over totally destroyed roads, and it's not going to be dark yet, but it's clouding up, as you can see. So it's not fun to ride through that shit in the rain. So anyway, it was always a great pleasure to be with you, and come back and remember, get a hold of me at the dudeawake42@gmail. Dudeawake42@gmail, right? And if you want to throw something into my PayPal, which would be nice, I have all like $13 in my bank account. But it always works out. But if you do, that would be a pleasure. So, and you go to PayPal, and that's the dudeawake42@gmail, right? The dudeawake42@gmail. So it's always interesting. It's still there. I got a few dollars last month, I think $25, and that was nice. That was just enough that my checking account didn't get closed, So anyway, and I leave everything up to God. So thanks for all the blessings, cadre, and I will see you soon. So, and remember, put things in there. Jamie Hill, let's see, predictive programming. They tell us the agenda. Yes, exactly. What else are people saying here? I wasn't really reading Mom Marvel comics. Yep. New York. Yep. 1970s. Yep. That's what I was living. Hi, Cadre. Joy to the world. Donald Duck for president. Yep. He ran a few times. Mm-hmm. Oops. What's this? Gretchen, I have a failed Foster Beagle, Great Barker. Okay, yes, that's your that's like Cooper, right? Oh, let's see, what's this one? So anyway, I'm gonna sign off now, and I appreciate everything. I hope you enjoyed me rattling on about this, that, and the other thing. And actually, we're at a place of great opportunity. Okay, talk to you later.